Are you good at making melodies?
Don't you lie, yeah. Don't you lie.
You probably answer yes, but are you good at making melodies from scratch on the MPC? That's where it really gets tricky, because not only are you limited in the range of notes you can play at once, but it's also not that intuitive. Using pad perform and the chord progression feature, it could seem a bit plain, especially without the inversions. But in today's video, I'm gonna share some chord and melody tricks that's gonna help you sound more advanced and less boring. So make sure you watch to the end, because I'm gonna be dropping gems along the way. So I have my tempo set at 70, and I already have a piano sound. Sounds like that. And to access your plugins on the MPC, you just want to be on this icon right here that looks like a plug, and then you can just click into plugin and then pick out the ones that you have. Now let's do shift and 16 levels. This is going to bring us to pad perform, and you can also go back to main and hit pad perform from right here. It will start on chromatic. All you want to do is to switch to notes, and notes simply provide a scale layout on your pads. So as you can see right here, it says A and then it says major. And you may be thinking like, what is the reds? The red are the different octaves of A. And you can also see that right there. As far as where to start, starting off with your harmony is a lot easier, because you can just build your melody from those notes. But for the first trick, we're not gonna just jump straight into chords. We're gonna start off by selecting our bass notes, and we'll choose those based on popular chord progressions. So we're gonna stay on major because it's gonna make a lot more sense in major. And most popular songs, like pop songs that these chord progressions come from, is from the major scale. And it's a lot easier to do that, because then you can look at the bottom of the pad, how you see pad 1, pad 2, pad 3, pad 4. It's just going to be a lot easier to pinpoint. If I want to do 6, 4, 5, 1, instead of trying to figure it out, I could just look at the pad 6, 4, 5. That's a popular one. And everything just builds from there. Don't feel weird about using popular chord progressions. Just focus on how you play them and experiment with different sounds and effects. So I'm gonna go with 4, 6, 1. I could also use the banks to go down an octave, but it will actually go down too if you're looking at this note. And then we could just double tap main to get to our grid view, and I'm just gonna play out a melody. All right, so I did play that without the metronome, so that's why I kind of off. And let's just bring those in. We could go to edit N just to bring it over more. And this one, I actually didn't mean to play that note. It did sound good, but I'm gonna keep it simple. So you can see that the notes are spaced out. That's intentional, because when you're thinking of an artist to get on your beat, they're going to need some room. You can get away with being fancy with your chord progressions and having different rhythms, but if you're going to do that, then I would say do less with your drums and your bass. But for me, I'd rather just do a lot more with my drum and my bass, since that's the focal point in trap. Now with chords, you're probably looking at, what is 1, 2, 5, or 1, 4, 5, or 1, 3, 5? There's really only 4 kind of chord types, which is your triad, suspended chords, your augmented chords, and your diminished chords. Notice how I didn't say 7 chords or 9 chord or 11 chord, because the different combinations you could come up with chords is going to thrive from the augmented, the diminished, the suspended, and the triad. They all build from that. So to better understand this chord feature, I'm gonna bring in my MIDI controller so we can have a better visual on this. So let's just do that. All right, so to break down what 1, 3, 5 means, all it means is that for each note in the scale, we're going to be able to play a triad. And the triad formula is just, you're going to skip one note in the scale and then play the other, then skip one note in the scale and then play the other. And this is why they say 1, 3, 5, because you see it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So then we got our A, and then we got our third on the C sharp, and then we got our 5 on the E. And the same goes for right here. And then if we move up, then we could play another chord. And we will keep that same formula to start it back over. So this will now be our 1 instead of this being our 1. And C sharp will be our 2. And D will be our 3. And E will be our 4. And F sharp will be our 5th. So then we still have that formula. The only difference now is one was a major chord and this is a minor chord. There's a thing called diatonic chords. Diatonic chords mean for each note in the scale, you can play a chord. Now going to 1, 4, 5, it's still the same formula. So instead of using your third, you're gonna use your fourth. If I start from A, which is now our 1, and I'm not playing the third anymore, I'll just go to the D. Then I have my A sus4 chord and I could play it here. Our next one is our sus2 chord. Now, if you understand the sus4, then you will understand what the sus2 means. So starting back on A and C sharp is our 3, we're gonna go down 1 in the scale. So C is not part of the scale. So we go to our B and that's gonna be our 2. And then you just follow that formula for the rest of the notes in the scale. Now, when you get to 1, 3, 5, 7, like I said, that's your 7th chord and everything builds from the triad. So if you already understanding how this is working so far, then you will understand that E is our 5th if we're starting on A, and then G sharp is our 7th. And that's our A major 7. Now 1, 3, 5, 7 B, the B just means to flat. So if you don't understand what flat and sharps is, flat means you're just gonna go down 1 note. So instead of playing this G sharp, which is the 7 starting from A, we're gonna play our G. So then it would sound something like this. That's our dominant 7 chord. Now let's get back to our melody. I'm gonna just start off with a suspended chord because I want that tension and I want it to sound dark. So let's just record that in. So you see that I just jumped around and used the data wheel. That's just kind of the workaround that you gotta do if you wanna just kind of play it all in one shot, or you could just, do it one by one. So let's go to main. Let's look at our chords. We're gonna edit the ends again. Now a quicker way to edit the ends, what you could do is do shift and hit the Q link. This is gonna go backwards. So instead of like trying to get to the 4th one when you're on the 1st one, you could easily reverse your Q links. But then I will use the 2nd knob to add bars. And the reason why I want to do that is because I'm gonna hit this pencil tool and put a note right there. And I want to put a note right there because of the feature I'm about to use. So I could just highlight everything except for that note, go to TC, scroll all the way to legato, press do it. Now you can see that it stretched it out. Now it's important to have that note right there because if I didn't have that note, the last chord wouldn't be sustained. So that's why we put that note there, and then we could just easily go back with our 2nd knob and put it back to a 4-bar loop. I'm actually just gonna pull these down. So that is a B, and the way you will go down is by going to transpose. That's what it means to go up or down. And let's just go to a B right here. And it's better to play the B right here because you want the notes close as possible, because that's how a pianist will play. Not all the time, but most of the time, because it's less movement and you get a more even tone and it just sounds a bit better. So it's sounding good. Now we're not done yet. Let's go back to shift 16 levels, and then we can just build another chord on top of that. And this works because if you break down advanced chords like you hear in jazz, most of them is just a combination of the major and the minor chords together. When it's in a regular triad form, this is how it would sound. You see how those all sound good? That's why I said this experiment. So I'm just gonna actually throw in one more, and I can throw in this suspended chord on top. So now you can see that just sounds so good. So then we could just edit the ends once again. And you can see that I go back and forth with the little tips that I give you, because it's not all the times that I would just use the Q links to move it over. Sometimes this might just be a quicker workflow at times. So now we have our chord progression. Now you can actually do more from here as far as, just moving each note. So we could go back to nudge. And you can just make your melody out of that, but instead I'm gonna go to a separate track to make a melody. But that is part of the trick. As far as making your melodies, you wanna use the notes that are in your chords. Now moving forward, let's just go to our 2nd track. And like I said, we're just gonna play around with the melodies, but we're gonna wanna go back to pad perform and switch it from chords to notes so we can play individual notes. it may not look like I play the same thing, but I kept the same notes and I kept that space, and there is kind of a repetitive pattern still. Now, as far as coming up with a counter melody, your first melody doing a bit much, then you want to do less with your counter melody. So let's go to our track 3. For these notes, I actually wanted to be in the lower part, and that's why I talk about the limitations that I mentioned in the beginning, because you would have to like hit the pad bank and all goofy stuff. So forget that. That's nothing to sweat about. Let's just go down, and luckily it shows us the notes right here. And then, like I said, now this might be a bit faster to just use the Q link, and it just comes anytime. I don't really be thinking about it. Legato, boom, erase it. I think I went down to a G instead. Let me bring that up. Now, obviously, what you could be doing is switching out the sounds for the second one and the third one. So that's why it's kind of good to just build with one piano melody and then you can swap the sounds later. That's kind of my workflow. You don't have to do that. Sometimes it just sounds good just like that. Now, we're not done yet. There's still more tricks I want to share with you to spice this up and make it even sound more crazier. And if you've been enjoying the tips in this video, then you'll definitely enjoy the ebook that I have. And it has a combination of all my YouTube shorts, just making it a lot easier to access them and not search through the channel. It comes with links in the video. And also, even if you're advanced, it's still going to be good for you because there's a lot of minutia gems that you probably overlook. So link will be in the description, and this is just a great way to support the channel if you've been finding value from my videos. Now I just want to add in what I call a lead melody. A lead melody is something that is just help the song kind of feel like it's not just repeating itself. So let's go to our fourth track, and then we have our lead sound, and I'm just gonna go with the vibes, man. I was trying to be fancy, but like I said, most of the times you want to keep things simple, man. I'm just gonna copy this over. Now what I like to do is mess around with the effects, man, so you can get a different sound. So I could just go to mix. I have my lead sound. I could just go there and let's throw on air flavor. Then I could even mess around with the first piano maybe, since the piano has like some bass in it because of the chords or that lower bass notes. I could just, you know, take out a couple of that so I can make room for my 808s and stuff. So I could use a no kick drum. And you can still hear that I have that low tone in the bass. It's just not present like that. Even though that does sound good, and you could always swap it out. Like if I was gonna use this for the intro, I would definitely still have the bass in it. And if you think that's too much, just turn on the low again. You could then do it manually. Once you have all your melodies, then what you wanna do is put them in a submix. So all you have to do is click where it says output 1 and 2 and just scroll up. And I could just do that for all my melodies. Then hit mix and then go to submix. And it will be the first submix. So whatever submix you put it on, then it will be that. And then I already have a sound. And our first effect is going to be the infamous trap beat essential, and that is half speed. I didn't just go with the default because the default would have sounded like this. That sounds good for an outro, but instead I went all the way to this one called Washout. Has a bit more rhythm, a bit more movement. All right, so that's cool. And then I decided I wanted more rhythm, so I added in this delay, but not just any delay. I added in the air diff delay, and I used a preset called mid-8. And And then I could build out a whole new sound from this by resampling it and chopping it up. Go to looper, put your input down to resample left and right. Keep everything the same. Don't put it on overdub. Keep the actual amount of bars. So I think this project is only 4 bars. So put that to 4 instead. Put it on ready and then just press play. And then we could just export that and then edit to go to the sample edit mode. So then from here, I could just go to trim, BPM chops, and from here, by chopping it up, you can add more variations to your beat. Now the last trick, you can't ever really go wrong with this one, and that is...
Can we get a drum roll, please?
Transposing your beat. Now keep in mind, this only works for MIDI. It's not gonna work for your actual samples. You still have to go into the sample edit mode, go to process, and then change the pitch from there. And you can just find a better tone for your beat that you like, and also the tone that fits the artist good, because sometimes you probably have an artist in the studio with you and they hear your beat and they be like, yeah, that sounds good, but let's go to the next one. Most of the times they don't even know that it's just a key switch that will make the difference. And if you was to pull that off, they're gonna be like, yo, what you do to this beat? It sounds crazy. Now there's still a lot more that you can learn making melodies on the MPC from scratch. And I have a video that goes into using Pad Perform and just going in depth with it. And I think you should watch that next if you really wanna understand how to make the best melodies from scratch.